Business is changing. The geostrategic challenges ahead of us allow us to believe that business is going to change at all levels of commerce and industry. Today, I have the distinct pleasure to have the president of the Cyprus Chamber of Commerce and Industry of the Republic of Cyprus, President Christodoulos Angastiniotis, with us. My name is Marios Eftimiopoulos, and I'm the CEO of Strategy International. And this is Prime Analysis. Dear President Angastiniotis, thank you very much for joining us in our web series talk.
Good morning.
Thank you very much, sir. The business environment is changing. What is the current state of affairs in this business hub, if you want, and how do we envision this from the point of view of Cyprus?
Thank you, Marios. The Cyprus Chamber of Commerce and Industry, otherwise referred to as CCCI, is the leading business representative organization of Cyprus with more than 10,000 members and more than 150 professional associations under its umbrella, out of which 42 are bilateral associations. CCCI is the federation of the 5 local chambers of Cyprus and is established in 1927. The Cyprus Chamber of Commerce and Industry is a private law chamber functioning under special law and is financially independent, free from any influence by the state. The chamber is funded by its members' subscription fees and through income generated from a number of services and activities that we provide. CCCI is the union of Cypriot businessmen, the interest of whom it promotes by submitting to the government and the parliament the members' position on matters in which they are involved, while through its participation in trilateral bodies and committees, it conveys and promotes the views of the business community. The chamber is governed by a 44-member council chaired by the president and an 18-member executive committee who acts as a coordinator and provides guidelines and handles matters of urgency. The basic objective of CCCI is to safeguard and steadily develop the Cyprus economy in order to continuously improve the standard of living and prosperity of the people of Cyprus and its business. The objective outlines and determines the policy of CCCI and its activities which aim at offering high-quality services to the members, including the promotion of interest of the business community, the strengthening of private initiatives which constitutes the backbone of the liberal character of the economic system of Cyprus, and contributing towards continuous and balanced growth nationwide within the framework of the European Union.
Indeed, a very blossomed agenda, and it doesn't take more to see that there is a very big information that comes out of CCCI to the world. So, President Angastiniotis, allow me to say the following. What is the status and opportunities within 2023? These are the objectives and the goals and the mission. So where do we stand in 2023?
The importance of the chamber has increased tremendously in the recent decade as a result of the problems faced by our economy, not only in Cyprus, but internationally. Indeed. The chamber has made concrete suggestions as to what needs to be done to face the various crises and help business not only to survive, but also to contribute to a strong economy. In 2023, we are still, unfortunately, facing a number of challenges, primarily as a result of the invasion of Russia to Ukraine and the problems in the supply of chain created by both the situation in Ukraine and also by the pandemic. Primarily, these are the inflation, the rise in energy costs, and the rise in interest rates that may lead to an increase in NPLs. Supply chain problems, even though the situation has somewhat improved compared to the last few years. In addition, we need to tackle various labor market-related issues that impact negatively on our competitiveness, such as the cost of living allowance, the necessity for foreign workers, and of course the minimum salaries, the national minimum salaries.
Absolutely.
The Chamber also places great emphasis in attracting foreign investments in productive sectors of the economy, the digital and green transformation of our economy, and the increase in the production and use of renewable energy. We also place a lot of emphasis on the simplification of the regulatory framework and better functioning of the public sector. Significant progress has been made, but still we have big margins for further improvement. I mentioned indicatively that in the last 2 years we had the registration of 1,600 companies of foreign interest in Cyprus, primarily from Lebanon, UK, USA, China, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and Australia. The sectors concerned are mainly information technology. We have more than 200 new high-tech companies now in Cyprus, financial services, commerce, hotels, renewable energy, education, shipping, and recently health.
Very good. I mean, you're mentioning a very big influence, if you want, in the market economy within the investment within Cyprus, and that's very important. And I would like to catch from this introduction you have made, because recently we have noticed that the CCCI had a high level representation from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. You have mentioned so far many countries that are now investing with their corporations within Cyprus, but what's happening with Saudi Arabia? Where do we stand?
That's very correct. Very recently, we hosted the Minister of Investments of Saudi Arabia in Cyprus, and we had talks with him, both with the Chamber as well as with our affiliated organization, with the Cyprus Investment Promotion Agency, an organization of which I happened to be the president for
many years,
7 years before in the past. Saudi Arabia can undoubtedly become an important trading and investment partner of Cyprus. The recent geopolitical developments favor the closer cooperation between the two countries and are in line with our objective as outlined before. The recent meeting and visits have been very encouraging, and we are confident that we are going to see positive results very soon. Our chamber places a lot of emphasis on the need to strengthen our economic ties with the Middle Eastern neighbors, as we can act as the bridge between these countries and the EU, but also gain a lot, particularly in the fields of trade, energy, and investments.
And allow me to say this and just catch from this last phrase that you mentioned, EU's role and Cyprus' role in the Middle East. How does it stand? I mean, we know that the war in Ukraine and Russia has created a new geopolitical reality, a new strategic reality. And you mentioned at some point energy, technology, and goes on and on and on. Recently, we've seen some publications about more tech companies coming into Cyprus from Israel. Where do we stand vis-a-vis the Middle East?
The European Union has become a key player now in international relations. Cyprus is located at exactly the correct position to act as the gateway for companies needing to improve and enhance their operations in the EU, and EU companies requiring to have successful operation in the Middle East. Cyprus plays this key role, not only because of the fact that we have a proximity to the Middle East, but also that we are a very active member of the European Union.
So I keep, in these words, I keep proximity, I keep geostrategic options, and I keep also the fact that we are a European Union country. Allow me,
as well as a country that welcomes investments and facilitates investments very nicely, I think, more than any other country in the world, I would say.
And yes, it is, I think, the whole picture of a friendly to investment circulation. And as you said, you've done president of the Cyprus investment for more than 7 years, as you have told us, and I know that your job speaks by itself. So let me just turn things around and just go a bit in more specific details. Exports and imports. How important are they to the market economy of Cyprus? You mentioned investment, you mentioned commerce, you mentioned industry. Can you give us a picture that people need to know when they talk about Cyprus?
Okay. No doubt 2023 is predicted to be a difficult year.
Absolutely.
Particularly if the Ukraine issue persists with all negative consequences. We are encouraged by the fact that Cyprus has shown resilience in 2022 with an increase in the GDP of 6.5%, relatively low unemployment to 6.7%, and public debt reduction to below 90%. In fact, Cyprus has recorded the biggest increase in GDP compared to all other countries in the Eurozone. As far as inflation is concerned, the harmonized index was 8.1 in 2022 and was the fifth lowest in EU, compared to 9.2 in the EU and 8.4 in the Eurozone. The predictions for 2023 is that inflation will be contained to 3%, hopefully, while growth will still be positive, albeit with a lower rate of 2%. Public debt is also predicted to decrease further. As far as the external trade of Cyprus is concerned, total imports in 2022 have increased by 30%, while the total exports by 24% compared to 2021. In addition, the industrial turnover index recorded an increase of 21% compared to 2021. As far as tourism is concerned, the revenues of 2022 have exceeded 90% of those of 2019, which was a record year, and that is considered a very, very good result. Compared to 2021, there was an increase of 61%, which is also encouraged. We are also encouraged by all the above developments, but this does not mean that 2023 will be an easy year, neither for Cyprus nor for the EU or the Middle East. I have previously said a lot will depend on the geopolitical developments and the related problems. Our chamber will do everything possible to safeguard Cyprus to the extent it's possible and help the Cypriot businesses to face the problems and maintain their resilience.
So open to business, open to change, and at the same time proactiveness. Absolutely, absolutely. I can say the following from what I've heard, and I know that your notes are very important in this case. Europe wants to enlarge, and Europe wants to expand with the Middle East. And I'm asking that, the expectations for the next 5 years, what are they? Where do we stand with the strategic, if you want, and the operational approach with regards to financial landscape, to the financial perspectives? I mean, we see an increase in industry, but considering the geostrategic challenges, are we yet to see an increase on incoming within Cyprus and within the EU? Are we looking at export? Where do we stand? Because you mentioned geopolitics and you mentioned strategies. Where do we stand?
As I have already stated, the future is characterized by uncertainty, and this depends to a large extent on the geopolitical uncertainties. We should neither forget unforeseen events such as the recent pandemic and the havoc that it has created. Uncertainty influences greatly the financial landscape, and we have already experienced this with the increase in interest rates and the collapse of a number of banking institutions, amongst other things. It is difficult to predict the future. It is extremely difficult. However, we are going to keep working towards achieving the main objectives and targets that we have set for our country, and which I have already outlined: attracting foreign investments in productive sectors of the economy, the digital and green transformation of our economy, the increase of production and the use of renewable energy, and the improvement of our industrial base and tourist infrastructure, with technology being a big part of this. We believe that Cyprus has the potential to achieve its targets, and we are optimistic for the future. Technology-related industries is a primary sector of importance for us, and is our aim to make Cyprus the investment and technological hub of the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East. We have already made significant progress in this area, but there are still great margins for the future.
That's very interesting to say, because you mentioned every sentence that you're making every now and then mentions technology. And you correctly so predict that technology will play a pivotal role.
I want to make a comment here.
Sure,
When it comes to technology,
sure.
somebody, a very wise man, told me once that the danger doesn't lie in setting very high goals with the possibility not being able to achieve them. The danger lies in setting low targets and being happy that you have achieved them. So in the case of technology, we are setting very high targets, and because we think that there is huge margins of improvement, not only in Cyprus, but everywhere in the area. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, technology is an integrated part, but I think you're absolutely right. We need to be cautious also. We need to have a long-term strategy, our missions, our goals, our strategy, but then again, technology is part of our lives in any case.
And we were very lucky, if I can add, that in the last few years we had started this Deputy Ministry of Technology and Innovation.
Yep.
We had an excellent Deputy Minister, Mr. Kyriakos Kokkinos. He has set very high standards. He has achieved a lot. That position has recently changed, and I welcome the new Deputy Minister of Technology of Cyprus that has been recently appointed, hoping that he will continue the excellent work his predecessor did in the 3 years he was in office.
And just to add here, one of the main elements that Mr. Kokkinos had added was capabilities. And the reason why I said this is I was in several meetings with regards to technology, and capabilities was the set standard for the next years to come. So we are presumably waiting for capabilities to be enriched, standards to be enriched, and therefore technology to become an embedded value, not only in the technologies in the business, but also in our everyday lives. And I think the new government also is looking forward for more resilient, more capable, more technologically agile government that delivers the outcomes. Having said that, I'm just going to try to combine a bit technology with a changing landscape. The challenges are big. There are ongoing wars. There's a challenge of financial, political, economic, sociological. We can do more. What do you think should be done, not only from the perspective of industry and commerce, but also on everyday lives, in the government sector, in the EU sector, in the global sector? You know, technology interconnects societies now. So where do we stand?
I think I have already extensively answered the question above, and I have outlined what Cyprus does in this direction and what our ambitions are in the years to come. In a nutshell, taking into consideration the changing landscape in geopolitics, our aim is to make Cyprus the investment and technological hub of Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East, as well as the bridge between EU and our neighboring countries. We have already made significant progress in this area, but there are still great margins for further advancements. The Cyprus Chamber of Commerce and Industry actively supports the strategic orientations of our country and is contributing through specific suggestions and activities, including but not limited to economic diplomacy and the promotion of the advantages that Cyprus can offer to overseas investors and business people.
Thank you very much for this. And you know, at Strategy International, we deal a lot with regards to risk assessments, managements, and also portfolios with private industries that seek this kind of answers with regards to technology and society on its whole, because it is really important, as you said, that geopolitics is actually clear. Where do we stand and where do we go? But allow me to just go in this second part of our discussion. Allow me to ask President Angastiniotis, the person. You've been in CIPA for 7 years, and now you're the president of CCCI. And in the expectations of a change of an industry, people seek for leadership. I know you're a good leader, and I know you've done a great job in Cyprus in difficult circumstances, namely COVID, and namely challenges of war. 2013, the financial crisis, absolutely. I would like to get a few minutes and talk about your level of growth, not only as a person, but also as a personality that led the investment, the industry, and the commerce, starting 2013, please.
Actually, my public career started earlier. It started in 1919 when I was elected as a member of the board of the Nicosia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. 2 years later, I was elected as the vice president for the industry, and 4 years later, I became the president of the Nicosia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. There was a period following that there was both a vice president of the chamber and the president of the Cyprus Investment Promotion Agency, otherwise referred to as Invest Cyprus.
Mm-hmm.
The role of Invest Cyprus, I think that's a better name than SIBA, by the way, is to promote Cyprus as an investment center and to act as an advisory body to the government as to how the investment landscape of Cyprus is improved in order to be more attractive, more friendly, more efficient, and more competitive. And I think that all presidents of Invest Cyprus so far have done a very good job towards that. And I think that the government was really listening and appreciating the work of SIBA in terms of its advisory role to the government as to how to improve the investment environment of Cyprus. And that's why we were successful. Apart from that, SIBA has promoted Cyprus as an investment center to Greece, to the UK, to Russia, to Ukraine, to
United
States, Asia, China, Hong Kong, Beijing,
the Gulf,
everywhere. We have done a lot of traveling and we have done very, very good contacts, the results of which are very obvious.
Yep.
I have said earlier that we have almost 200 new high-tech companies already in Cyprus, contributing very significantly to the GDP of Cyprus, but also have very, very significant investments in tourism, in property, in hotels, in the industry, and in many other sectors of the economy. So the role of SIBA, of Invest Cyprus, is very clear and is being performed very well, also by its current president, Mr. Evgenis Evgeniou, ex-CEO of PwC Cyprus. The role of the chamber is somewhat different. We promote economic diplomacy. We do quite a number of missions internationally in order to promote Cyprus and in order to assist Cypriot businessmen export their services and products abroad. But we also do a lot of other things at the chamber, which is the training of our workforce, the promotion of Cyprus exports, the advisory role to the government, and also making suggestions and taking positions on different bills that go to the parliament. The role of the chamber is a lot broader than the role of Invest Cyprus. But I must say that the cooperation between the two bodies is so close because the last 3 presidents of Invest Cyprus originated from the chamber, starting from Mr. Phidias Pilidis, that was my predecessor at the chamber. Later it was myself, and now it's Mr. Evgenis Evgeniou. These 3 people are people of the chamber.
And we would welcome them surely to discuss with their own point of views on how things are done, both before yourself.
I'm sure you will find them very interesting.
Absolutely.
They are very interested people and true professionals.
Absolutely. But you missed one point. The leader, the man. I would like a few words about yourself. How did you envision this? And where do you go with this? Where do you envision the support in the market? I know I appreciate of you with your job that you have done. Where do we stand with the president, Angastiniotis?
Let's make a distinction here.
Sure.
I'm a man of leadership more than a man of collectivity. And why do I say that? In difficult situations, you need a leader, not collective management. Whereas both have its advantages and disadvantages, the leader should be able to push everybody in the organization he's leading to follow him and to work towards a certain goal. And I think that I've done over the years what I could possibly do in order to encourage, to make my people enthusiastic, wherever I was, in my personal businesses, in the chamber, in the Nicosia chamber, in SIPA, and wherever I'll be in the future. I think this is my motto: make the people enthusiastic of the job, making them feel happy for their achievements, for the achievements of the organization, because it benefits the country, the company, depending where everybody is.
I think this is more of a civil service that you have done to the country of Cyprus and to the Republic of Cyprus than anything else. And absolutely, it takes a leader to say that he needs a decision maker to take such decisions, such difficult decisions under the vibes, if you want. That
Things are not always easy. For example, we have suffered a lot in 2013. It was about March 2013 when one day we realized that we had no banking system. We realized that we had to have a bail-in. The trust in the economy has vanished. The trust in Cyprus internationally has vanished. But through the correct steps, through hard work, through the support from the government, because you had a very supportive government that was just elected 10 days prior to the collapse of the economy and the banking system, in close cooperation. And I have to thank the government at the time, the Nikos Anastasiadis government. I think that in a very short period, we have done miracles.
Indeed.
We have exceeded the targets Troika gave us much faster than what they initially anticipated it would happen, and we have done very well since then. There are things that we can still do. If you ask me to name one, I always believe that the delay in justice in Cyprus is still our biggest problem. The English say that justice delayed is justice denied. And we have already passed through the parliament different laws in order to improve the situation. These laws are not implemented yet, and there is still a long way to go. There is a lot of work to be done in order to make sure that we deliver justice in time. Our justice is fair, is non-corrupted, is clean, is a diamond. But delivering justice late is like denying justice.
So I take it as a first request towards the new government, push on the.
It has always been our
agreements.
first request towards every government, because this is not a problem we had only with the last government. With the last 4 governments, we had the same problem, and there was no significant improvement in the last few years. We hope that now that the legal framework is in place and has gone through the parliament, that things will improve very rapidly. Otherwise, we will discourage in the future investors to come to Cyprus.
You mentioned something that is really important, and I wanted to always ask a question. It has been referred multiple times that within the EU framework, doing business in Cyprus is easier, but doing business in the European framework, with regards to what Cyprus may demand, therefore what the European Union may demand, may bring a difficulty for investment coming in the country. It doesn't only apply to Cyprus. It may apply for other European countries. But the European Union has progressed, obviously, through the countries, through the agreements, through the commonalities that all markets need to have. But what makes Cyprus a more interesting hub versus other European countries, considering all the possible difficulties that somebody may invest in the European Union?
First of all, I wouldn't agree with you that making business in Cyprus for a new investor is more difficult than in any other country. I think that we provide a lot of help, and the environment here is very friendly. Not only for the business itself, but for the employees of the investor. We have the necessary schooling, we have the tax benefits, we have the weather. Investors and their employees can be happy being in Cyprus.
Just to make a note, I was intending to concentrate a bit on the European framework vis-a-vis the national framework. We know that the national framework in Cyprus is very clear-cut when it comes to business. It's actually business-friendly for many years, not now. But I was actually wondering more on the elements and the decisions on more resilience and being attentive and more security resilient, if you want, with regards to business. The European laws are applicable into Cyprus. You see, every country, as you said, Cyprus is next to the Middle East. So we need to be much more open-minded with regards to how important it is to be interconnected also in the framework of business. So my question was, does the European Union understand the necessity of doing business? And is it problematic at several levels, maybe legal, maybe some obstacles, and especially in the element of counter-fraud? How do we measure, how do we synchronize, and how do we apply?
I don't think we have a problem there. I think that Cyprus conforms with all EU regulations with regards business, banking, flow of funds, etc., etc. This impression that is usually given would stem from the fact that many European countries are competitive destinations to Cyprus, and maybe sometimes some of them want to give this impression. We have a very good relationship with the European Union. And I think that our central bank, which takes care of our banking system, is second to none in the European Union nowadays.
Okay, so we're talking about conformity, competitive advantage of conformity, and capabilities.
Okay.
And this is where I wanted to lead the discussion because
there's one more point here.
Yes.
Cyprus is probably the one country in the European Union that has the highest standard of professional services and human resource, which is next to none. Accountants, lawyers, advisors. It is not by chance that the Institute of Chartered Accountants that Cyprus was the first country in Europe
to get the
or in the world probably, other than the UK, to get permission from the Institute of Chartered Accountants to train chartered accountants here.
That's very good. And mind you that Cyprus is located in the Middle East, and it also brings the vibes of the European continent in the Middle East and those who aspire to maybe become even more close in the business and trade relationships with the EU.
And we mediate for many of these countries in the European Union. We help many of these countries get closer and have a better relationship with the European Union. Usually it's a question of relations between the countries, and we do have excellent relations with our Middle East neighbors like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the rest of the Gulf. So in many occasions, we act as mediators or as a gateway.
It's a hub. Cyprus is a hub. Thank you very much for this. A lot to be said, a lot to be discussed. I would like to go into the current state of affairs. It seems that the United States has been shocked by latest elements within the banking system, created by the technological changes that are now taking place with regards to the heavy tech companies located in California. For that reason, a bank almost shut down. It was bought off partially in the UK by HSBC. The bank is trying to be saved. It seems the interest rates, as we see nowadays in the United States, have risen. The interest rates have been risen also in Europe, in the European framework, in the European Union framework. Should we be concerned?
Let me start from the beginning.
Sure.
To say that the reason interest rates rise is an effort of the European Central Bank to control inflation. That would have been 100% correct policy had inflation been demand pull inflation. The inflation we're facing today is not demand pull, it's cost push inflation. So the measure works, but it doesn't work 100%. There's no easy way to inflation, but the reason we have high inflation is cost push inflation, is not demand pull inflation. So I don't think that this policy of ECB will give the necessary results, or to the extent that they hope they will. Now, with regards to the banking crisis and the collapse of the Swiss bank, as you have mentioned, the Swiss law is somewhat somewhat different than the European law.
Allow me to just stop you. I started with the Californian bank.
I'll come to them.
Okay, very good. But this led also to the Swiss bank as well.
Not necessarily. I don't agree that the two were interconnected. I don't think that the American crisis, the reason the American banks collapsed, SVP and the First Republic Bank,
yes.
whatever their name was, it was that they have made the wrong investments.
Exactly. So it was a clear cut.
The reason Credit Suisse, the second biggest bank of Switzerland, collapsed is because that for a very long period of time they have been taking the wrong decisions. Nothing came out in the public. But what has happened in Switzerland is somewhat strange. If a bank goes under, the first to take the burden should be the shareholders.
Absolutely.
After that, it will be the people that have bonds from the bank. And then is the depositors. In Switzerland, what they have done, I don't know why, first they vanished the value of their bonds, and then the shareholders took some burden. Thank God that the Swiss government was careful enough to maintain its reputation as the world's banking center, and they have safeguarded the depositors. Same in the United States. The President of the United States has assured repetitively all depositors of the two banks that they will not lose their money. But certainly there's going to be an negative effect on the businesses that were cooperating with SVP and the First Republic Bank.
It was only obvious that the Silicon Valley Bank was also related with the layoffs of all these technological companies, because it seems that people were taking off their money. But in comparative approach to the Swiss banks, what happened is that it seems that the shareholders were not enough to save Silicon Valley Bank in this case. Now, allow me to just move ahead in the post Swiss banking system. What do you think in the European Union? Does it impact the European Union? We saw trembled global stock markets, and it shows the volatility of the market. And last time it happened, the volatility was shown exactly at the moment when this war happened, the invasion of Russia into Ukraine happened in February. There was no shock after that, and then there's now a shock, which is the banking system.
Maria, the economy and banking can be referred to as by one word: trust, and trust. So when the trust is gone,
yes,
then the depositors will run to take away their money. They will not reinvest. So this affects the bank. Immediately they need recapitalization. The stock exchange, the different stock exchanges lose value. So it's trust, and trust. And that's why, like I said, the Swiss government tried to limit their losses by investing or giving 50 billion
to save the bank.
That's why the American president came out from the next day saying nobody's going to lose their money. And that's why our central banker, Mr. Christodoulos Angastiniotis, a very prominent central banker, is assuring investors in Cyprus and Cyprus businesses that our banks in Cyprus, and I have every reason to believe that and vouch for what he says, are very well capitalized and have excess liquidity. So I'm not worried about the banking system of Cyprus for the time being, given what we know so far and given what we have seen happening recently.
Thank you. In this case, I wasn't so much looking only at the Cyprus banking system, knowing that the banking system is solid and more than this. But I was more afraid of these geostrategic challenges taking place, especially you've seen it also with China, the United States, the competition on who controls
this
what.
This is why I said knowing what we know today and given today's environment. Things, of course, can easily change. If the war between China and America, the economic war, continues or it gets worse, certainly we will have problems. If the war in the invasion and the war in Ukraine continues and elaborates, certainly we will have problems. If the If the supply chain is disturbed again, then again, certainly we'll have problems.
Last question. If I were to ask for you to describe year 23 going to 24, considering banking challenges, geostrategic challenges, political challenges, in an interconnected technological world, trade world, how could you describe it in a sentence?
It's going to be a very challenging year. It's going to be a rather difficult year, but those who have done their homework and have a little bit of financial cushion will make it. I'm optimistic.
Thank you very much, President Angastiniotis. Thank you very much for this. Thank you all for watching Strategy International web series. Please subscribe, like, and follow our social media. This was your host, Marios Eftimiopoulos. I'm the head of Strategy International. And do not forget, impact makes a difference.